Rutgers knocked off Temple 16-14 this past weekend. Put that together with their opening game effort, which was, to me, a surprise at the time against Boston College. They came back from 2 scores down in the fourth quarter to win 22-21. But even in scoring over 20 points, the offense limited there. If you look at their offensive rankings in college football, they're a bit deceptive. Week 2, that middle victory, Wagner, 66 points on the board. A lot of offense in that game against an inferior foe. So Rutgers challenged as well, but 3-0. Greg Schiano building something there. I caught his news conference this week on the Big Ten Network. So, he's pleased with his team, pleased with this program, and certainly I would say that there are a lot of correlations between not just the two offenses, but the questions that are posed by the media for both head coaches, because he was questioned quite a bit about the offense and what do you need to do to get things jump started. One thing of note that I remember was 80% run pass ratio on first down, and a lot of questions about predictability, maybe breaking trends to especially not just facing the run of the mill defense that they've had issues scoring and moving the ball against in 2 of the first 3 weeks, but we're talking about facing one of the best defenses in the nation now and trying to take an offense that has yet to generate anything against an FBS level opponent yet. And then to ramp that up against an Iowa team, I don't know if we're looking at like a scoreless game here.
I agree. Yeah, I mean, you and I joked about this. Well, it wasn't really a joke when we talked about Iowa State, and we were talking about, I don't know how they hit the over, and I went out on a limb late in the week and game week and said I think they'll hit the over. I think Iowa will find a way. No, that didn't happen. So Iowa's played a 7-3 game. They played a 10-7 game. They scored the 7, of course, and then beating Nevada over the course of 7 hours, which just completely drains a person. Nevada's not a good football team. I think we know that right now. That's just not a very good football team. But I will say this: you brought up Rutgers offense. They're pretty bad right now. I mean, Mark, they're not. I looked up their total. I mean, I could actually pull it up here. If you look at FBS rankings right now for total offense, all right, Rutgers as of what are we going into week 4? I'm sorry. They rank right now 91 in the country. But the problem with these rankings is it takes into account that game against Rutgers, which I don't even know if that game should be counted towards their numbers against Wagner. I don't know if they should be counted because, as you said, not only is it an FCS team, it's a terrible FCS team. But I guess you got to count it. So let's just look at what they did against Wagner. You alluded to it. They put up 585 total yards against Wagner. 585. Now think about that, Mark. They've played 3 games. They scored 585 in 1 game, and yet they're only averaging 369.3, which is good for 91st in the country. So just do the math. They score 16 against Temple. They had 201 yards in that game. They got outgained on the road by the Owls. And then, of course, the Golden Eagles, they get very close there. Actually outgained Boston College by 10, but just 322 total yards. So not to what Iowa has done. Believe me, if you look at the numbers, Iowa still has the worst offense, and there's not going to be a team on the schedule unless something changes that I'm going to say otherwise. Iowa is going to be the disadvantaged part of that team will be the offense in every game the entire season. So we understand that. But I think you hit the nail on the head. If we wanted to be kind of facetious and sarcastic about Iowa and Iowa State's chances of playing that game, in the 20s or 30s, I mean, then we shouldn't have any question at all. There shouldn't be any question at all. This game, I will be shocked if either one of these teams hits 20. Now, it's possible. I brought that up and cut a video that's going to be released here a little bit later on my channel. It's possible that somebody gets, you get a punt return, you get a kick return, mix in a couple safeties like Iowa had week 1. It is possible. I mean,
but that's Iowa and Nevada. Path. That's the point that you're making is if one of the two teams or both of them hit 20, it's not going to be 80-yard drives, 75-yard scoring plays. It's going to be defense/special teams generated points for the offense. Or, there's an interception where Iowa takes it down to the 6-yard line and the offense only has 6 yards to drive for a touchdown. Well, that's a defensive score to a large extent.
And Mark, Iowa's also proven to consistently be really skilled at wasting good field position. Now, there have been times where they've punched it in. You look at the blocked punt against Iowa State. They have a nice couple of runs from LaShawn Williams, and they punched it in for 6, but that was the only touchdown of the game. So Iowa consistently is going to have good field position. The thing with Rutgers, though, Mark, and I don't want this to be a show on punting, but they have one of the best punters in the country in Adam Korsak. This is a battle of maybe the 2 best punters in the country. I think you could make that argument. So it's going to be all about field position, and I get nobody wants to talk about that. I don't really like talking about that. I've seen the media, several people in the Iowa media this week have written articles about the punting battle, and I don't read much stuff anyways, Mark. I know you don't. You love college football, but you just don't have time to consume a ton of extra content. I'm the same way, but man, even if I was a content consumer, if you will, I wouldn't be reading that stuff. It just doesn't interest me. I can still acknowledge that those are probably the 2 most important players in the field, but that's not a good thing. I mean, that's not something to be bragging about if you're Iowa. I mean, or Rutgers, frankly. But it is, the bottom line is both of those guys are going to be huge in this game, and who can take advantage of field position, because both teams, I mean, Korsak is nearly as, maybe, and our guest here in a few minutes might tell me otherwise. I think Tory Taylor is the best in the country at creating good field position. And, you pair that with a couple of gunners in Cooper DeJean and Terry Roberts, who are just absolutely sensational. And I mean, you see those guys in the field. It's a work of art what they do, and how skilled they are at doing it, along with Tory and his ability to pin teams deep. So Korsak, Taylor, that's the storyline this Saturday.
All right. Rutgers, Iowa. We've got a guest coming in. We got Chris Nowosky from the Knight Report, Rutgers rival. Chris, we appreciate you being here at the Voice of College Football. How you doing today?
Hey guys, thanks for having me. I really appreciate you having me on. And I heard you guys talking about Adam Korsak. Right when I hopped on. I think he's the best punter in the nation. So
okay, we can have a listen. Marky, I don't have the strength to fight over who's got the better punter.
Yeah,
but,
I may have to separate you two. I'll place myself in the middle box
what
here to separate
a battle.
you two. We'll have a punting battle between Rutgers and Iowa. We've got Brad Robbins, the great Michigan punter, being touted in the live chat as well. So,
Chris,
big on punting.
I have to ask you this, Chris. Are Rutgers fans proud of Adam Korsak being maybe their best player?
Oh, 100%. Now that Greg Schiano has come back, Rutgers has kind of had a pulse and on offense, defense, and everything like that. But a couple years ago, when Adam Korsak was the guy on the football team, he was the face of the football team, and he was pinning guys deep. And honestly, that was the best part of the game, for Rutgers at that point under Chris Ash a couple years ago. Personally, pound for pound, I think he's the best player on the team as well. And all the fans absolutely love him, and he loves Rutgers. He came back for he came back this year for his last year. He didn't need to, he didn't have to, but he applied. He came back. He loved Rutgers, and he still wanted to punt for Rutgers, and he's still phenomenal as always. I like to call him. I like to say he's a wizard. So the way he kind of maneuver the ball and everything like that. So he's great.
I have to ask you: is it true that we could be seeing a walk-on punter for Rutgers? Are they down Noah Vedral? Is it Wimsett? Is he also down now?
Yeah. So right now, quarterback Vedral and Wimsett are both game time decisions right now. They both Vedral got hurt a while ago. Wimsett kind of went down this past week against Temple. They still have Evan Simon, who's there, scholarship guy. He started last week. I think it's probably safe to say at this point he's probably the likely starter at this point. Okay. But there is still a couple days left, so we'll see how Vedral and maybe Wimsett, maybe one of them is healthy and they can start as well.
And Simon, again, redshirt freshman. Tell us about his skill set and how he differs. I was gotten a look at each. Kirk Ferentz had his press conference today. They have had a look at each one of these guys now on film, which is somewhat of an advantage, but I'm assuming they're all different. Tell us about the three styles, because we could potentially see any of one of the three.
Sure. Yeah, Noah Vedral he's a veteran guy. He knows the offense in and out. He doesn't have the strongest arm, but he won't really put you in a bad spot. He can run too, when called upon. Evan Simon, I feel like he's very accurate with the ball on short to medium range passes, and he can run as well. He ran a lot in high school. He hasn't really run much, at Rutgers so far, but he has that ability also. Gavin Wimsett, he was a 4-star quarterback coming out of high school. He has wheels. He's very good in the read option game. His arm strength is phenomenal. He threw a deep ball for a touchdown 2 weeks ago, and he barely used any strength to do it. Basically, I guess I can say so. All three guys kind of different styles, but they all can run. So I guess possibly that's one common thing they have there.
And is it again? Do I pronounce this kid's name correctly? Johnny Langan.
Yeah.
Is that correct? At wide receiver, had I guess you could call it a breakout game this past week against Temple, which by all accounts is a pretty good defense with 79 yards on 9 carries. Rutgers wants to run the football, but Chris, I don't think there's any. I don't think there's any scooting around. These are two bad offenses. Can we agree on that right now? Regardless of the reason why, is it because of injuries at quarterback for Rutgers or whatever the case may be? I think we both understand this is a battle of two defensive units that are stellar, two special teams units that are stellar, and two offenses that have a long way to go. Yeah,
the Rutgers offense played, really not on par of what they did the first 2 weeks, last game out against Temple. They had, almost 600 yards against Wagner 2 weeks ago. First game, they beat Boston College. They almost had 400 yards. But last week, I don't know what the difference was. Nobody really kind of pinpoint why or what happened, but they really, played very poorly on offense. Going back to Johnny Langan, he's actually a tight end. I know you said a wide receiver, but he's really more than a tight end. He does everything. I'll be honest, you probably will see him playing quarterback at some point. So they call him Johnny Offense. He does everything. He can block, catch. You might see him a running back. Might see him kind of like a fullback role also possibly. So I mean, he does a little bit of everything. He just wants to play football. He likes playing football. He's a really good offensive player, and he's honestly a great weapon for Rutgers to have.
Mark, anything from you?
Well, this team has talking about Rutgers. There's an obvious approach here. They're risk averse. They're going to throw it 12 or 14 times a game as long as they're staying in the game. That's been proven throughout Greg Schiano's tenure, not just this year, but they're down by 9 points against BC in the first game. In the second half, they're able to come back, win that game, and then we see the Temple performance. They're going to run the ball, and I think this was asked of Greg Schiano this week. 80% of the time. Period. 80% of the time on first down, they're pretty predictable. Do you see any hope that they're going to expand on the passing game, maybe find more explosive plays and more efficiency in the passing game going forward?
It's a great question. I know our Richard Schneider asked that question the other day at the press conference. I feel like if Rutgers can possibly, even if they don't necessarily complete the passes for long gains, I think just showing a pass play on first down, maybe kind of, change things up a little. It gives defenses something to think about. That's, you can't be one dimensional in a college football game, especially in the Big Ten. You got to be able to mix it up a little bit. I do think that offensive coordinator Sean Gleason is capable of calling a creative game. I mean, the first game against Boston College, they really showcased Aaron Cruikshank a lot. He ran the ball, caught the ball. So, I mean, he's capable of, putting guys in good places to be able to be successful. We have seen a bunch of trick plays out of this offense in the past couple of years. So I think I have a theory that they really wanted to just move on from the Temple game in a way and kind of like just win and move on, because I think they were kind of looking forward to Iowa, even though nobody said it or anything like that. So I think you can see the Rutgers offense do something different. But again, it depends, who was available at quarterback and if they had depth there. Because I think when you saw that Evan Simon was only quarterback and healthy against Temple late in the for the rest of the game after the first quarter, I think maybe they got even more conservative to not get him hurt or anything like that as well. So.
Yeah, most of the worst passing offenses we see statistically in the country are obviously the three service academies. We see Iowa sixth worst in just looking at passing yards per game, and Rutgers isn't far behind, even with the big Wagner boost. So one last question for me is more of a program question, because I find this program fairly intriguing because what they achieved with Greg Schiano the first time around in the Big East, he comes back. They're decidedly better from what they were, losing 21 consecutive Big Ten games. He shows up on campus and boom, all of a sudden they're respectable. But there are limitations there. He made the comment, something to the effect that, we're on to something special here. He made that comment the other day. What do you think he and everyone in the program is reasonably shooting for, not just this season, but for Rutgers football?
Sure. I think really the goal every year is just to make a bowl game. It's obviously tough when you're playing the Big Ten East right now, the way the divisions are set up. So, I mean, they're likely not going to win a Big Ten championship anytime soon. I'm sure Ohio State, Michigan, Penn State, and then, of course, Iowa, Wisconsin, everything like that on the west side are really good. So I think really just the main thing for Rutgers is to shoot for a bowl game every year, 6 wins. I know Schiano, I think, wants to get into playing more, an FCS team every year to kind of get that one more win to kind of help them along as season, for the season. So, but yeah, I think just getting a bowl game is really the main focal point every single season. And they really did that when Schiano was here the first time around. They went to like 9 bowl games in the last 10 years or something to that effect.
The over under.
Oh, I looked at. I know it's 34 and a half, which is
34 and a half. Okay,
which is close to being the lowest over under in college football history. The lowest over under in college football history, I believe, what I saw according to Barstool, was 34. One of it was tied for 34 last year. Wisconsin was 34, did not hit the over, was a push, and in 2000, I believe it was 15. Mizzou had a game that was 34 that actually hit the under. So. This has a chance to see if it moves down to 34 or 33 and a half to be the lowest over-under in the history of college football.
Okay. Maybe we'll make that a poll question. We'll leave that here on the community page and make that a poll question. Over-under Iowa Rutgers 34 and a half. Iowa makes 2 of the top 3 lowest over-unders in history.
That's not something. I don't think it's necessarily anything to be proud of, but it
does have something to do with the defense.
It does. Well. It absolutely does. And I did see. I believe what was the number? Let me find this stat that I guess I can throw out there. Let me just say this: Chris was a lot higher on Rutgers than I am on Iowa right now, and he's also a lot higher on Rutgers than I am on Rutgers. I don't, with all due respect to Chris, and he knows Rutgers football far better than I do. I have no faith in that offense at all.
No.
They've got 3 quarterbacks that, just what I know, they're all mediocre. None of them are healthy. Well, the one is Simon's healthy, right? But 2 of them are not healthy. They got a walk-on pushing Simon, so I don't, they haven't been able to run the football consistently. They try to run the football. I mean, they do run the football maybe better than Iowa does, but that's not saying much. And I would say the same thing about the Iowa-Nevada game. Like, I don't think we learned much of anything from that game. And we did, Mark, we did 2 post-game shows. I did a post-game show after the game. We did a post-game show Sunday night with Don. I did a weather delay show from the stadium on Saturday. Like, I still don't believe I really learned much from that game. Iowa still didn't run the football well. Caleb Johnson broke off 2 big runs, but I think they were just slightly over 2 yards per carry if you take away those 2 runs from Caleb Johnson against that Nevada defense. That ain't good.
Rutgers is not going to amass more than 220 total yards in this game. And I will say that unless the game gets out of hand, Iowa's up 34-7 and they get some garbage yardage in the 4th quarter.
I can't imagine Rutgers doing anything against Iowa's defense. I really can't. I can't either. It comes down to turnovers, right? It just comes. I mean, I would think it comes down to who takes care of the ball.
Here we go, Corey. I'm going to look up the box because this came up when we did our off-season preview of this game. I'm going to look up the box score from the 2019 matchup because it is crazy how dominant Iowa's defense or putrid Rutgers offense was in this game. Rutgers threw for 47 yards, 10 of 27 passing for 2 picks, and they ran it 22 times for 78 yards. So they had 125 yards of total offense. Lost 30-0.